Chapter 1. The Wanted Promise from the One He Loved the Most. The Whitefire Sea pressed down like the breath of a dying god. In this world, the open sky was execution. To step beyond the black star shadows was to be unmade, flesh, bone, and soul boiled into nothing by the relentless white blaze. Night was the only mercy, the active pulse when the furnace dimmed to a sullen ember glow, and creatures could move without dissolving. Day was the true night, blinding slumber where everything hid and waited for the white to exhaust itself again. Denial crouched in the narrow throat of an alley between two obsidian-spined gambling dens, the kind of place where fortunes and bodies changed hands before the next cycle of night. His small frame, 8 years old, already corded with the kind of muscle that came from surviving what should have killed him, was pressed against black sand that had been kicked into drifts against the walls. White shadows stretched long and sharp from the single flickering lantern above, painting everything in inverted light. Across from him, pressed into the same shadow, was the girl. She couldn't have been more than 8 herself. Sharp eyes, sharper tongue, even when she wasn't speaking. Her clothes were too fine for this part of the sprawl. Silk stolen or gifted from the brothel quarter, now torn at the hem from running. They called her Love in the houses where Prunikos ruled with wanton smiles and ancient secrets. But tonight, the Ether Guard had called her something else. Dispatch. Same word they had whispered for him. The guard moved at the mouth of the alley, 3 faceless things in whitefire cloaks that hurt to look at directly. Their voices were low, overlapping like static from a broken star. 2 for the cleansing. The boy broke oath. The girl carries the bloodline they want erased. Denial's mother had made him swear it 1,000 times. Never interfere, never draw their eyes. Survive by being nothing. She was already gone, taken in the last cycle for the same crime of existing too loudly. He had watched the white take her. He had learned the lesson in his bones. But the girl had looked at him when the guard first appeared, not with fear, with that kingly little lift of her chin, like she was already calculating how to turn the moment into something she could use. He broke the oath. His fist, small, trembling, already scarred, shot out and struck the nearest guard in the throat. The impact wasn't power. It was desperation given form. Night's scale stirred for the first time. A tiny black hole punch, no larger than a marble, that sank straight through the cloak and into whatever passed for flesh beneath. The guard folded inward with a wet, imploding sound, white energy collapsing into the void. The other 2 turned. Love didn't hesitate. She snatched a shard of black glass from the sand and drove it into the second guard's knee, twisting with a vicious little grunt. Denial followed with another punch. Black hole bloom, smaller this time, but enough to stagger. They ran. Prunikos found them 3 cycles later, huddled in the ruins of a half-imploded volcano crater, sharing the last of a stolen water skin. The Gnostic woman moved like smoke and sin, her robes clinging in ways that made the boy look away and the girl stare boldly. Lustful eyes, ancient and tired, scanned them both. "Well," she said, voice like velvet dragged over broken star glass. 2 little killers who don't know when to stay dispatched. Come. The gambling house has beds, and I have uses for children who punch holes in the world. That was the beginning of the Wanted Promise. Years later, after the Justice Org had been born in blood and black sand back alleys, after they had built something that felt like family while hunting the predators who fed on the weak, Denial would stand on the roof of their tallest den during the deep of night, staring up at the black hole stars. Love would join him sometimes, shoulder brushing his, the gangster queen already forming in the set of her jaw, even at 15. "You still owe me for that alley," she'd say, voice light but edged. "I know. One day I'm going to collect on that promise, muscle boy, the one you made when you broke your mother's oath." He never told her what the promise actually was. Not then. It wasn't "I'll protect you." It was quieter, heavier. "I will lose 1,000,000 times if that's what it takes for you to never be dispatched again." He trained for it. He bled for it. He let Prunikos drag him to the Black Mountains when the time came, leaving Love to her growing empire of justice and syndicate shadows. 10 years in the imploding peaks, learning to turn every agony into fuel for Night's scale. On the final night, before the world-shaking battle that would claim both teachers, Prunikos had pulled him close in the firelight of a dying volcanic heart, her body against his, wanton, grieving, seeing ghosts of a previous universe in his obsidian frame. "You carry the champion I lost to the greed," she whispered against his skin. "But remember this, boy. The denied one always pays the price the world refuses to name." He returned changed, African obsidian, chiseled granite muscle that could punch voids into reality itself. Love had become the gangster queen in his absence, sharp wit, kingly instincts, leader of an organization that bent the sprawl to its will while still pretending it was only about justice. She met him at the edge of the white ocean, black sand shifting under their boots. The reunion was fire and silence. She looked at him, really looked, and for a moment the refusal in her eyes flickered. Then the walls came back up. You took too long. Denial. I came back. That's not the same thing. He wanted to say the promise aloud then, the one from the alley, the one he had carried through every training scar and every black hole punch. Instead, he only nodded, because the prophecy was already whispering in the Whitefire winds. She would never be his, not truly, not while the universe ran on covetance instead of the forbidden word. So he began the long work of the martyr's path. He would lose the million times. He would carve through hell itself. He would wield the sword of every pain without flinching. He would lock her into protective sleep when the final choice came. And when he sold himself to the Foundationers and stepped into nowhere, he carried only one thing with him, the wanted promise from the one he loved the most. The promise that had started in an alley when 2 children refused to be dispatched. She would live, even if it meant he never would, not in the way he wanted. The Whitefire Sea roared on overhead, indifferent, but somewhere in the black hole harbors, a single star seemed to pulse, just once, like it remembered the shape of a boy's fist and the girl who had once looked at him without fear. End of chapter 1. The master guide holds. The threads are woven tight. Whenever you're ready, say the word and we descend into chapter 2. What does the next thread demand? The Vigilante era's first blood, the Mountain Exile's final night, or do we leap somewhere else in the chronology? Your world, your call.